in Spain, I studied English for 15 years through primary school, high school, college,
Hmm.
and I could pass a grammar exam. I did pass English, all the courses, but I just couldn't speak the language. And it wasn't until I started watching the NBA in English that I actually acquired. And of course, just like you, I realized afterwards, once I started reading Russian and so on, I realized, oh, so that was the thing that actually helped me out, right? Hi, Helene,
Hi, Alvaro.
and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on your podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And yeah, so let's get started with, just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your experience with languages, both as a language student yourself, language teacher, content creator, whatever comes to your mind.
All right. It's a long journey.
Okay, good.
I started learning languages when I was fairly young, but I think the most interesting experience that I had as a language learner was when I moved to China. And at that point, I already spoke French, English, and Spanish, but I tried to learn Chinese Mandarin before going, and it was impossible for many reasons. And I just thought, either I learn it when I'm there on the spot, or I'm just not going to learn it. And it's okay. It's hard. 9 months after arriving in Shanghai, I wrote a little book for the newcomers who were arriving in Shanghai with the basics of the language and how to get by, how to get around in a taxi, how to order at the restaurant. So it took me 9 months of immersion in a nice context. People were nice, and I was able to communicate in Chinese.
Cool.
So this is, sorry.
No, did you write that in Chinese or what?
No.
Okay.
No, sorry. No, the guide was like Shanghai 101, I think. I don't remember. I never used it much, but I was able to do that. And there was no studying. I didn't use anything. I didn't use the internet. All I did was go out and talk to people at the restaurants, at the convenience stores, taxi drivers, a few friends. I had a Chinese teacher at one point, but she didn't teach me much. Like, the grammar is not very useful when you're in immersion. You want to understand what people are actually saying. And people were really nice. They were curious about us. They were very open. So that helped with the affective filter. And when we would say 1 or 2 words of Chinese, they were like, oh, your Chinese is so good. They were so happy, so encouraging.
Right.
Which is exactly what you want to do. Not, oh, your pronunciation is not good. And the fact also that Chinese grammar is really nice and simple.
Okay.
For beginners. I don't know the higher levels, but as a beginner, it's simpler than English grammar. Same simple, logical word order, no articles, no masculine, feminine, barely any verb conjugations. It's awesome. So this is the other thing that made it easy for us to pick up Chinese very quickly. So that's amazing. Compare that with Korean. I never really learned much Korean. So I can read, I can understand a lot of things, I can order at the restaurant. But living in Korea, the experience is completely different because people are shy, they're reserved with strangers, they don't normally interact with people they don't know, and they don't expect you to know Korean. And if you speak a little, they assume you're completely fluent, and then it's just like, I don't understand anything.
Right.
So because of the culture and because of the grammar and pronunciation that are so much more complicated in Chinese, I never really acquired Korean.
Right. Yeah, and I guess it's hard when you're starting pretty much from scratch, right? And you're not getting the help you need, right? And yeah, as you were saying that you weren't using the internet, so you didn't have the new YouTube channels that are coming up with the tell stories or they talk about the culture of the countries to sort of get you started and be able to get to a point in which you can start understanding what's going on in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of lazy that way. I want to get good CI. I would love to have very nice, very enjoyable, easy to understand content in the languages I'm interested in learning.
Right.
I feel that I would learn so fast, but I live in Bulgaria.
Yeah.
The Bulgarian Pod 101 is somebody speaking English with a couple of sentences that I already know. I don't have time for that.
Right.
I want the content that I find in the language I want to learn. That's the whole point. I want to understand people speaking.
And in that sense, I have a couple more questions about everything you talked about, but I'm just curious about Bulgarian that you're talking about, because there's something I've been thinking about recently. How about finding someone who wants to learn French or English from Bulgaria and educating them on CI, on things like that, right?
Yeah, I did try that at some point, but then we just ran out of time and COVID happened and but that person actually started creating videos in Bulgarian, a bit like my French Presso videos, short 1-minute videos where he's just talking about what's going on, the baby cats there, or what's in the park, and it was amazing. But yeah, and it was a bit too advanced for me. But it's fine because he did like I do. He put the English and Bulgarian subtitles. So reading the English, I was able to understand what was going on because I have enough vocabulary. So that was really awesome.
Okay. But when you're reading the subtitles in English, are you really understanding the Bulgarian part, or you understanding the English? So you understand the message because of the English subtitles, and you're not really soaking in.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I understand what you mean. So it is a bit too difficult for me, but the English subtitles help me bridge the gap and understand. Right, yeah. So with enough content like this, I would be able to learn, because I know, like, he says this is a park bench. Next to the bench, there's a trash can. These are words that I've been exposed to, but I don't know them. But listening to this, I could understand those words, but I was missing the connectors next to the, I don't know those words. I haven't learned them. But with the English, it's like, okay, that's what he's saying. So it is comprehensible because I know what he's saying. So it's not ideal. Ideally, it would be baby Bulgarian. I understand every single word, but in the real world, things are not perfect. Right. So you have to adjust.
Yeah, I understand. And it's not a language with a lot of resources out there, right? So yeah, because if it's English, French, Spanish, even German, Russian, you might be able to find someone who goes about it the same way, but makes it comprehensible enough so you don't need the native language subtitles, English in this case.
Yeah. But what you were saying about finding a language partner and training them to use CI methods, that's interesting, because once when I was still living in Korea and trying to learn Korean, I was looking for a CI teacher, TPRS, whatever, and I found a blog of someone who did exactly that.
Okay.
They trained a Korean teacher to teach them with stories. And I contacted her and I started classes and it was amazing. But then we moved out of Korea to come to Bulgaria.
Right. So you gotta go online now.
But that was online. She's in the US.
Okay.
But that was awesome because like Bulgarian, I have all this vocabulary, but I can't connect it because I haven't been exposed to the language as it is spoken in a way that I can understand. But with the story, we could see what was going on. It's like, yeah, I know the word for jump. I know the word for run. Now she's using them in context and I can follow the story. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it is. How about trying some Facebook groups for CI teachers, trying to ask if there's anyone from Bulgaria?
Yeah, I'm in a lot of Facebook CI teachers groups, but yeah, I mean, it's just not my priority anymore, unfortunately. I'm so busy with work that I'm just picking up Bulgarian very, very slowly from being exposed to it when I leave the apartment when I'm not working.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, as much as you can, but given the circumstances of being busy and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. And COVID didn't help. For 2 years, we almost didn't go out and we had masks on. So how can you understand what somebody is saying when you can't see their mouth?
Yeah, then
That did
you
not
have to
help.
go. You have to go online. Yeah.
Yeah.
During those times. Yeah.
True.
Yes, I wanted to ask you because you said when you moved to China, you already spoke French, English, and Spanish.
Mhm.
So French and English are your native languages, right?
French is my first language.
Oh, only French. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're from Quebec, I understand. Or
It's a complicated question.
Okay.
I was born in Quebec, but I grew up in a small province east of Quebec, New Brunswick, and
Okay.
it's the only bilingual province in Canada. And I grew up in a French-speaking part, very close to Quebec and close to the US, Maine. But when I was growing up, French was my only language. I learned English in school.
Right. And at home it was French, I guess, right? But in the streets, were you using English as well, or
No. It was completely French.
only French? Okay.
Edmundston is like 95. The whole region of Edmundston is 95% French.
Okay.
The English speakers, there are English speakers there, but they're separated. They go to English schools. So growing up, there were no English speakers in my neighborhood, and my school was a French language school.
Okay.
So it's only in high school or maybe like middle school. But even then, middle school, there were 2 English classes or groups and like 8 French groups. So we saw, okay, those are English speakers, but yeah, it's like the 2 solitudes, no interaction.
Okay. Right. So then basically you had to learn English just like any other language then, right?
I learned English as a second language in school, and it was not very effective to actually communicate in the real world.
Right.
So when I went on student exchanges, I was able to talk one-to-one with a person, but if there was a group talking, I was lost.
Okay.
Because it was too fast and there was too much interaction.
Yeah.
So the way I actually learned, like, acquired English is there's 2 things. One, when I was 16, 17, I decided I wanted to be bilingual. So I started to read a lot and watch a lot of TV, which is getting CI, which I didn't know about at the time, obviously. But I had all these stupid romances, Harlequin romances that my aunt would give us. So they're stupid. It's always the same stupid love story. But it's stupid. So even if you don't understand, no problem. I understood maybe 2 words out of 3, but I read them very fast. And I know I learned a lot of vocabulary that way. Okay. But the most important thing I did to understand was the TV shows that I enjoyed watching at the time. I started watching them in English instead of the dubbed French version. I knew the characters, I knew the interactions. So it was easier to start to understand them in English. So that was the first step when I was 16, 17. Second step, I moved to Montreal. So I moved from a bilingual province to a officially French province. Right. To learn English, not to learn English, but that's one thing that happened. I made a lot of friends who were not native French speakers. Some of them didn't speak French at all. So English was our common language. This was amazing because now I can analyze it with Krashen's theory. It just destroyed my affective filter. I wanted to speak with my friends. So there was no shyness, no embarrassment about speaking English, no worry, am I going to sound okay? No, they're my friends and I want to talk with them. Right. You were interested in communicating in the message, right? Yeah. Nobody was there to correct anybody else. So years of speaking with some of my friends in English, and also years of living with English-speaking roommates. That's the best. Yeah, of course. So it's slow, but it's painless. There's no effort. It's just fun. You speak with your friends in English. Yep. Yeah, it's same thing when you're watching TV shows that you're interested in or listening to podcasts about topics that you're interested in. It's not going to happen overnight. We know that, but you're actually enjoying everything. I mean, that's what I do. Like
all the languages that I'm getting exposed to on a daily basis, I just, like I said, I listen to podcasts about topics that I'm interested in, read books, watch series. So it's pretty much what I was already doing in Spanish, my own native language, but language, right?
In
so
other languages.
I like to say that it doesn't really feel like learning.
Yeah.
But it is working, you know. So
yeah.
It's painless.
Yeah, it's painless. The big effort you have to do is to find the content you're interested in and that works for you, and then just enjoy it.
Yeah, especially at the beginning when, because once you get to an intermediate point, there's so many more resources that you have access to, right? That are comprehensible. I mean, the beginning stages are always tougher because you need someone that creates videos in a specific way, or you need an actual teacher, or you need a language partner.
That's so interesting, because when I was at Langfest, the polyglot conference in Montreal, I was curious, like, all these polyglots, they speak so many languages, and I asked a few of them, how do you get started in language? One showed me her Assimil book. So you use books? Like, yeah, whatever works. But they're so motivated to learn that whatever they use, they will just eat it up, they will learn it, and then they will move on to getting content that they can understand. Right. So that's a couple of people, I was just shocked, like, wow, I assumed that you had a secret way of finding great CI. It's like, no, whatever you can find, but keep at it, and soon enough it's
right. But what types of books?
One, I think she showed me I think it was Assimil or one of those French series, like she was a Quebecer.
Okay.
I can't study with those books, not anymore. I did a long time ago.
Textbook style book.
Yeah, that's something between a textbook and a phrase book.
Okay.
But I mean, if you don't have access to anything else, it's okay.
Yeah, right.
Use whatever you can find. But yeah, ideally you would find a language partner, but
yeah, I mean, in those textbook or phrase book, you do find some stories here and there. It's just anything that resembles the traditional way, and it just puts me off, you know, like
I know, me too.
On guard, like no.
Yeah, I guess it's really personal. Everybody is going to be different, because I see a lot of people, including several of my students, they do both. They get CI, they watch a lot of YouTube videos, some watch TV series, they're getting, some read. If they're advanced enough, they can read. But a lot of them also do language learning on the side. And my own partner, my boyfriend, that's what he does too. He uses other things, and that supports his acquisition, because if he learns a word, it's like, okay, I'm never going to need that word. One day he's in a bakery and they have that weird bread with the weird name. It's like, wow, I'll never forget. And I also know that word now, kozunak. It's Easter bread in Bulgaria. Right. When he learned it, it's like, that's useless. Well, he knows it anyways because he had studied it, then he saw it, and that one time is strong enough that, okay, it clicks in your brain.
Right. But my theory is he actually learned it when he saw it on the bakery.
Yeah.
But many times we give that previous learning the credit because it's tangible, it's measurable. You know what I mean?
Okay,
my fear with traditional learning is gonna get in the way, in the sense of it's gonna make you focus on form and make you hesitate when you're about to speak and things of that nature. Yeah.
I can tell when one of my students has been working with the pronominal verbs. Our next lesson, all the verbs are pronominal. It's like, yeah, it's making the monitor work too hard.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel that time would be better spent just enjoying a show or a video or reading something. But I mean, if somebody wants to learn grammar and they feel more secure doing that, it's kind of helping their effective filter. So let them do it.
Right. But I also have the feeling it's our adult attempt to control the process, right? Which it sort of calms you down, but it doesn't mean that it's actually helping you. You know what I mean? Of course, I mean, if you feel safer, it can help you in that regard.
Mhm.
I don't recommend it personally,
Yeah, yeah.
but
Mhm.
yeah, because in that case you were talking about like Easter bread. Probably if when your boyfriend saw it in the bakery for the first time, it sort of rang a bell for him,
Mhm.
right? So he might think because I learned it beforehand, once I saw it, I was able to acquire it, right?
Mhm.
But I think the reason he acquired it was because he actually saw it.
Uh-huh.
But when you consciously learn it, it's easier to grasp, to measure. So okay, so
Yeah.
I've learned
Okay.
this word. Of course, we all know what happens afterwards, right? Because
Yeah, you forget it unless you repeat. That's why they do spaced repetition. They know you'll forget it. You haven't actually acquired it. It's in your short-term memory. You have to keep at it. Give us money every day. Click every day.
right, but the one thing that actually helps you retain it, if you will, is that real life context input. At the bakery with
Yeah, the whole context, people,
exactly,
emotions, sounds,
exactly,
noises.
and
Yeah.
the shape of the bread and everything. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And how about your Spanish? How was that? How do you go about it?
That was, yeah, traditional learning. Well, when I was a kid, we had a small book, Spanish Through Pictures. So I was like, oh, I want to learn Spanish, but it was just a book with pictures. And I was saying hombre because there's an H. And in English, you pronounce the H. So I guess I assumed you pronounce the H in Spanish.
Right.
When I was at McGill, I decided to take Spanish. And it was amazingly easy, but it was a traditional course with textbooks and everything. But a minority of us in the class were native French speakers, and the others were English speakers. And I saw how much easier it is for the French speakers because it's much closer.
Right.
And I had straight A's in that class without any effort. I loved it. I enjoyed it so much, even though it was traditional learning, but I enjoyed that. I wouldn't enjoy it anymore, I think, but at the time it was fine for me. I did all the classes up to advanced, and then there was nothing else. And I did manage to also interact with friends in Montreal who were from Spanish-speaking countries. So that also made it a real world language, not just academic.
Right. So that's what I was thinking about. That because of the academics that you were mentioning, you were getting straight A's, but we all know that doesn't mean you're actually able to use the language, right? But it probably gave you enough for you to understand what was going on when you actually spoke to your friends or Spanish-speaking people, which was the thing that actually helped you acquire the language. But again, we give the conscious learning the credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I think it was exactly the same thing for me with English. I've talked about it many times, but in Spain, I studied English for 15 years through primary school, high school, college, and I could pass a grammar exam. I did pass English, all the courses, but I just couldn't speak the language. And it wasn't until I started watching the NBA in English that I actually acquired it. And of course, just like you, I realized afterwards, once I started reading Krashen and so on, I realized, oh, so that was the thing that actually helped me out, right? And all those years of traditional learning, at least they gave me enough for me to understand what was going on in the NBA games. But that was the thing that actually helped me out because I was watching NBA games every day in English for several years. I still do that, right?
Okay.
But because comprehensible input is subconscious, right? Or language acquisition is subconscious, rather. It's harder to measure. Again, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to say. So I've watched a series episode. I've learned this much, or I've gotten this much better. It's hard to measure. Yeah. But if you go to a traditional class, So today I've learned 3 new verb tenses. So
and tomorrow I will have forgotten everything.
Of course, but
and I will feel stupid. I'll feel, why am I not good at languages?
Yeah.
It's the method that's not good.
Exactly.
It's not you.
Yeah, you leave that class and you feel like you've gotten this much better because you've learned three new things that you can measure.
And you do the test and wow, I passed. I'm in the next level.
Exactly.
Until either you manage to get some CI and you actually acquire the language, or you just give up and feel like you can't learn languages.
Yep. And I'm sure it's happened to you with Bulgarian. Like again, I've talked about it many times, but I perfectly remember the first time I came to Poland. I didn't know about CI and all the stuff yet. And, the usual thing you do is you ask native speakers, how do you say this? How do you say that? And I vividly remember that I don't remember what it was, but they told me, and 5 minutes later, I've forgotten already. Like 5 minutes, not a month later or even a week. No, 5 minutes. And the crazy thing is the same exact thing happened to everybody else. Like 10 minutes later, I would ask another non-Polish speaker friend, what was the word? I forgot. What it is. So did it happen to you with Bulgarian that they told you how to say a specific word?
I don't ask. I'm very shy. I probably don't look shy because my teacher personality is outgoing. But I'm actually introverted and shy, and I don't talk easily to people. I prefer to just be alone and quiet and watch, observe. And when we go to the stores or to the restaurant, Daniel speaks way better than me. So he's the one doing all the interaction. I can understand what's going on, but I don't want to make the effort to speak because I don't feel that I've heard enough.
Right.
To be able to sit.
Yeah, I mean.
So I will not ask people, how do you say this?
Yeah, no. What I'm talking about is with like Polish speaking friends, not a random person.
Yeah, okay.
There's a Polish speaking friend with which we communicated in English at the time. But just out of curiosity, how do you say, you're in a bar, how do you say beer in Polish?
It means nothing. Yeah.
I mean, beer is easy, but other words, like, how do you say that in Polish? Okay, good. 5 minutes later, got it.
But if you are in the bar or at the restaurant and you're actually ordering something, then it will probably help you remember it. And also whatever they reply to you, that's a real life interaction.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't remember what it was, but so I'll be in a bar with my friends and ask them, how do you say glass, for example? Like you had the beer, how do you say glass? Szklanka. Now I know, szklanka. But back then, like 5 minutes later, it was,
Chasha.
it was yeah. But anyway. And how about your project, your Wandering French?
My YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started that in 2018 when I was in Bangkok. I'm really a traveler.
My goodness. You've been everywhere.
Yeah. Because at the time I knew about Hugo's Inner French channel. And I think Français Authentique was around, and there wasn't much else. I don't think Alice Sayel had started, or if she had, she was doing beginners videos.
Okay.
I don't remember. And I was just trying to find content for my students because I teach online. We do mostly conversation, and I encourage them to listen and read as much stuff as they can. But there isn't much. So I thought I'll make some videos for my students and anyone else learning French. And my students at the time were mostly intermediate, like B1. So that's kind of the level I was at. And I've been doing several types of videos over the years. I started the Quebec French series a couple of years ago. But recently I started the Beginners Quebec French series. And I'm really excited about that one. I think it's unique. It's either really, really smart or really, really stupid. I hope it's really, really smart.
Okay.
Because it's a course for complete beginners, but beginners in Quebec French. And by that, I mean spoken Quebec French, colloquial French. So the normal language that we speak, the language that I speak, my French. So if you ask me if I'm Québécoise, I'm going to say, yeah, je suis Québécoise. Je suis. I'm not going to say je suis Québécoise. I will not say je suis Québécoise like the French. I'll say je suis Québécoise. So in that series, in the very first video, I said that je suis Québécoise, je suis Québécoise, je suis Québécoise, je suis Québécoise. And this is not something that people learn until they're at least B1 or B2 normally. Teachers want to teach them proper French, which is book French. They don't want to speak with books. They want to speak with real people.
Right.
Most people don't speak like books.
Yeah.
So I decided to do it this way. I'm making it as easy and comprehensible as I can, but I model both ways, the kind of more standard way to say things and the way I actually say them.
Okay. Yeah, so you have context or picture or whatever is necessary to help people understand, but you're using it the way you would use it in the real world with your friends or your families.
Yeah. And really, I have a friend in Montreal. She's been living in Montreal forever. She never managed to learn enough French because they kept testing her and putting her in the same level with the same stupid grammar books. So she's comfortable with basic interactions, but she never got farther. This summer, I was telling her about my videos and about how like you don't say the ne in the negation usually in spoken French. She was like, what? She never heard of that. No one, none of her teachers, and she was at several different schools, including universities. No one ever mentioned that because that's not what teachers teach. Teachers, especially for a language like French, which is very normé, it has a lot of norms. The Académie Française, Office Québécois de la langue française. So this is proper French, and the rest is not proper. So teachers don't want to teach not proper French.
Yeah, but that specific one, nobody uses that in the real world.
With the ne pas?
Like nobody.
No one that I know, that's for sure.
Yeah, nobody. Like all the French-speaking people, native I've met, nobody uses ne.
Yeah.
Nobody says je ne veux pas, je veux pas.
Yeah, it would sound so weird.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I get it.
But the fact that it's not taught, that's when this type of thing is the main reason I think that people learn French for many years, even if they're in immersion, they might be in Montreal, and they're like, I can't understand people. Because the teacher is teaching them French with the usual methods, with the books, they're teaching proper French. It happened a few years ago. I was teaching immigrants in the francisation classes at Université de Montréal, but for the government. Then when they finish the highest level, right, you go work. You're ready for the job market. A few weeks later, they come back. I can't understand what people are saying to me. Yeah, we used Grammaire Progressive du Français and a lot of nice speaking activities and projects, but there's not enough time to teach proper French, real official French, and also the way it's actually used, because it's two different things. And people are not trained to do that, and they're kind of embarrassed to do that. So the result is you're finished, you've done the most advanced classes, and you still cannot understand the people in Montreal.
Right. Yeah, because you listen to a sentence and they're wondering, where's the ne? Where's the
it's too short. I don't know. There's too many contractions. Like, yeah, these are normal contractions, and it's not just Quebec. Like you said, the French also don't say ne.
Right.
J'aime pas. So I did that in the first video. J'aime pas. Nobody says je n'aime pas. No one that I know. No one that I want to talk to. They sound too formal if they speak like that.
Yeah.
So I would not feel very comfortable being friends. I can't imagine being comfortable with somebody who would speak like that.
Understand.
For many different sociolinguistics reasons.
Yeah,
linguistic insecurity and glottophobia, and we judge people based on the way they speak. We judge ourselves based. It's complicated.
right. Yeah, but it's just not natural. That's it. Yeah, it's not the way people communicate. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you can accomplish that by, I mean, even if you're a private students, you can have conversations with them, or you can create a story in which the characters in the story have conversations with one another and speak the way you would speak
Yeah.
in real life. There's so many ways to do it, right?
Yeah. You create stories with your students.
I do.
Mhm.
So yeah, I do for the most part. I also play board games sometimes, for example, or
Mm.
or like I said, or I depending on the level, of course, I show them pictures. If I know they're interested in traveling, I might show them some pictures of my travels and speak
Mhm.
about my experience and so on.
Yeah. That's
At the end of the day, or sometimes I do have conversations, well, just pure conversations in which I know I need to do most of the talking because that's what I need in order to get better, right? But
Mm.
if they're comfortable enough or they're intermediate level, they can already communicate in a certain way. But for the most part, I do stories, but besides the weird, crazy details, you wouldn't tell it's not an actual conversation. And
Mhm.
and that is I'm not circling or asking questions like, is it green or purple? Is he eating or drinking? I do ask questions, but to keep the story going, and
Mhm.
so it's all about meaning, about the message,
Mm.
and we create like crazy complex story from an intellectual point of view, right?
Mm.
So it's more interesting for adults, obviously.
Yeah.
They're having fun while they're learning the language.
Mm.
And like I said, the characters in the story can have conversations. So we have all sorts of different situations, not just
Mm.
like a person narrating a story, but also, like I said, dialogues, conversations between
Mhm.
characters, and yeah.
And do you type up the story afterwards?
I actually, with my beginners, I started to type it at the same time, not long ago. So I'm telling the story, but I'm typing it at the same time, which helps them, right? Mentally, it helps them understand some words that they might not be able to understand
Mhm.
otherwise. Also, it gives them like reading practice,
Yeah.
and I don't need to remember the story at the end. That helps as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like because I've been writing it down, it's already there, so I don't need to
Yeah.
spend 10-15 minutes remembering everything we talked about after the class.
Mm,
So it's perfect.
yeah. I did try that for a little while. And I was also recording the story afterwards for them to be able to listen
Yeah,
to
I
the
do that as
story.
well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's nice. But yeah, it's nice. It works, but it's not my personal preferred way of teaching now. So I
Yeah.
haven't been doing it for a little while.
Right. Yeah, but then, like I said, you can always adapt it to your style, to the way you
Mhm.
communicate. Because
Yeah.
a similar thing happened to me at the beginning. Because when I started with teaching and CI and so on and stories, most of the experience I had, most of the videos I watched were classroom type of videos with
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
So they're different. There's a lot of antics and and
And there's a lot more energy because you have a whole group and they're in person. They're not.
yeah, and they're kids. They're more active and they can't sit straight for an hour like an adult and things of that
Mm.
nature.
Mm.
So over time, I started to adapt it to adults online, to the way I communicate, to the
Mhm.
type of stories I want to tell. Also, I try to include game-like features if I can. Like,
Mhm.
for example, when I ask a question about a new detail that we're coming up with to keep creating the story, instead of just asking the question, sometimes I ask the question and we come up with 4 different options to keep the story going forward. And then we roll a die.
Okay.
And whatever the outcome, we go with that option. So there's a lot of improvising as well, and so I like that. It's fun. Yeah.
And those are for private lessons.
Yep.
Or the groups private.
Well, no, both. But I mean, like
both.
private
Okay.
lessons, but my group lessons are like 3, 4, 5 people max. I don't. Yeah. Because it's online. I don't want to have 15 people in a class, of course.
Yeah.
But I've found like 3, 4, 5 is.
Yeah.
The experience is no different from a private class. Actually, I mean, obviously, you need to have them at a similar level when you study, right? Approximately the same level. But,
Okay.
yeah. And how about the languages that you're looking to learn now? Are you looking to improve your Bulgarian, or you don't have you don't have time for that at all, like you said?
Well, not really. I mean, last week I took out one of my little Bulgarian phrase books and I was reading it. And then the next day we went to a Korean restaurant, and then I wanted to ask a question in Korean, like, are there many Koreans in Sofia? And I was trying to form the question in my head, and there were a few words of Korean, a lot of Chinese, and a few words of Bulgarian. I thought, it's hopeless. I can't create a sentence because it's been so long since I spoke Korean, and I was speaking Chinese this summer at the workshop in Agen, because there was a language lab and I was the assistant in the lab. So I had a whole week of hearing a lot of Chinese and speaking it a bit also. So I love, actually, I would like to get back into learning Chinese.
Nice. Okay.
Because I enjoyed learning it because of what I explained. It was enjoyable. It was effortless. And I even ended up learning characters. When I decided that either I was going to pick it up naturally by living there or not at all, it was okay. But I thought, I'm not going to learn to read and write. That's way too difficult. But over 3 years in Shanghai, I learned a few hundred characters. I was able to order there's one type of restaurant, the hot pot, where you have a tiny piece of paper with all the ingredients you can get for your hot pot, and I could order everything that I wanted except for the meat. That was too complicated.
And yeah, I'm just curious because I've talked about this with several people on the podcast, but how do you learn the characters? Just
by exposure. I mean, I could not write a Chinese character to save my life. I tried once, even Zhong, like a middle, like Zhongguo is China. It's like, I think it's a square with a line in the middle, but I don't know. I've never learned that. But if I see it, I know that's what it is. So they're like pictures. And that's what I think that's Terry Waltz, awesome Chinese teacher. I think she invented cold character reading. And from what I understood this summer, we were talking about it. It's just once students have acquired a word, if they see it in writing, they will acquire it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we only had 1 week of language lab, so not enough time to see if that was going to work. But the last or second last day, the Yi, the Chinese teacher, was actually showing them the Chinese characters.
Right. Yeah,
it's amazing.
I remember. So I went to Ajan 5 and 6 years ago, like 2016, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
And the second year, the second time I went there.
That's how you know all these awesome people you've been interviewing. I was like,
not all of them, but many of them. Yeah. And the second time I went there, I was a student in the Chinese lab.
It was Diane at the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I had her on the podcast as well. And I remember we created a story, like a simple one with not Superman, Spider-Man and things like that. And then at the end of it, we read it. And she used like different colors for different words. We read the story and we had the picture of Spider-Man and then so Spider-Man is blah blah blah, and we had different colors for different characters. So and we read it. Helps. Yeah, I don't exactly remember the way she went about it, but I think she read it first. So we knew the story already just from listening, and then it was written down, I should go like Spider-Man is blah blah blah.
Okay.
So we'll
Yeah.
recognize. Okay, so that's Spider-Man. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
and also I have my experience with Russian. Again, it's different. I've talked about it as well, but so it's a different alphabet. It's not that different like the Chinese characters, of course. So
it's an alphabet. It's not
Yeah,
2,000
right.
characters.
Right. But I remember watching some of the videos by Ina, Comprehensible Russian channel, and in some of them she had a map of Europe with the names in Russian.
Mm.
And without even paying attention, I would start to realize that there were patterns there. Like, okay, so this first letter in France is sort of a circle with a stick, which happens to be the first letter in Finland as well. Right? And she would use France, Finland. She would say the words in Russian as well. So it was like all the different ideas to make the connection.
Yeah.
And I can perfectly read in Russian right now, meaning that I understand the word that is written. It doesn't mean that I understand everything. I'm not there yet, but I can read it. I can read it all. You know, so I recognize the letters. That this is the word. You know, I might be able to read the word and don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, I've sort of figured out the alphabet already without having to consciously study it. Which is the main point of everything I wanted to say.
Yeah. And have you been exposed to the cursive alphabet?
In Russian? I mean, there's like, or like...
it's all
like uppercase, lowercase as well?
Yeah. That's not too bad. I know the alphabet is similar to Bulgarian, but the handwritten, like the ones you will have on the menu, right. At first it was like, wow, we'll never read that because it's the cursive writing.
Right.
Now we're fine with it, but it took a couple of years of exposure.
Yeah, I mean, in Russian, for what I've seen difference between the uppercase and lowercase in some words, in some letters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I've had to sort of double learn that, if you will.
Yeah.
But no, I've been exposed to the written language through videos and like simple comic books, things like that.
Okay.
I don't remember coming across a cursive, so that's not been an issue.
And in Poland they use the Latin alphabet, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of letters with funny symbols on them, but it's still the Latin alphabet. Yeah.
Right.
There's like an A with a with a tail that you pronounce on.
Wow.
Or an E with an, but or there's an L sort of with a diagonal stick to it.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing.
But the rest of them is Latin alphabet. Yeah. That's not the hardest part with Polish, no. Cool.
All right. Sorry, we've been sidetracking a lot, so I didn't really answer your questions.
No, I mean, we just, the idea is to talk about our experiences, how we learn the languages that we already speak, how we go about language acquisition, language teaching as well, what we think is helpful for us as students and for our students. Yeah. So as teachers.
There's one thing I want to say. Around 2000, I had my language exchange club in Montreal, which was awesome. And I started that partly because people were always saying, I've been taking French lessons, but I don't get enough practice speaking, which is what people still are saying. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give them a chance to practice. And then we created this language exchange club, which was awesome. There were just conversation, like many different ways of doing conversation, but with no grammar whatsoever, because nobody in there is a language teacher. It was amazing. And they learned a lot very fast. They even made friends. I had a couple marriages from people meeting at the club. So no affective filter. The affective filter came down very fast. One of my students told me, I was doing surveys, like evaluations, to know how things were going. And one said, "This is amazing. I was not able to speak English in Montreal before because I felt like a traitor, because Montreal is supposed to be French. And if you're speaking English, what are you doing?" But then the fact that there were English speakers wanting to learn French balanced it out for her.
Right.
And the fact that the atmosphere was nice and people became friends very fast, that's the best way to learn, because you want to talk with people. So what I want to say is I created this because people said they wanted more practice speaking. And after understanding or finding Krashen's theory, I realized that what they need is practice listening. But that's what they got, because we would do activities half an hour everybody in French, half an hour everybody in English. Maybe nowadays I would try the crosstalk approach, but I didn't know about it at the time. So the time we were in English, the English speakers had to speak in a way that the French speakers would understand. And if they did it, it was their job to say, "I didn't get that," but in English, and try to explain, not just translate, just try to explain and understand what it means. So they got awesome practice from listening a native English speaker. I had people from many different countries, so different accents. So this is what I realized I gave them. But I think people also need to practice speaking at some point, because that's what my students have been telling me and understand. They're getting a lot of CI, they get a lot of listening, they do some reading, but once a week, they want to practice speaking. They've been receiving all this input, and the reason they learn French is because they want to speak it with people. So it's okay that once a week we speak together, and I'm their language parent. I speak at their level. I write things in a Google Doc. But the fact that they're able to express themselves better and better, that helps them, it motivates them, and it helps lower the affective filter, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that it doesn't technically help them
that much,
but it's really important from the motivation standpoint, because you feel like, oh, so I'm actually able to communicate, right?
Yeah, because they want to.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. I mean, if I was making a big effort to learn Bulgarian, I would want to go out every day and practice what I've been learning. And one thing also about correction, I have very strong opinions about error correction. For the vast majority of people, correcting errors will not help you, even though you think it will help you. And if you're like me, it will just kill your desire to learn the language. So one time I was here in Sofia a couple of years ago, and I wanted to ask for 2 little cans of beer. That's what people do. They ask for 2 beers and they go sit in the park. So I asked it, I said the way dve or dva, there's 2 words for 2, and biri or bira, one is singular, one is plural. I don't know which one I said. The woman, the girl, just looked at me and she repeated it exactly the other way. So I had it completely wrong. Yeah, 2 beers, like, okay. 1, I'm never buying anything from you anymore. 2, I will not make the effort to speak anymore. It's discouraging.
Thank you for saying that. I'm trying to pound that in people's head. but that's to that extreme example of not wanting to come back to that store again, which
I'm kind of joking a bit, but I mean, it really killed my desire to make an effort to speak, because that's kind of the attitude here. People want to help you learn, so they will correct you. And depending on your personality, it may or may not help. It helps my partner. Daniel likes it because he's not learning with books. He's mostly learning by interacting with people. So the first time he asked for a long espresso, he used the word that he thought was correct. And the customer behind him said, "We actually call it this way." It's like, wow, thank you. And he's happy. And now he can use the normal way that everybody uses. So for him, that works. For me, it doesn't work.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I'm on your side, to be honest. But
sensitive ego.
my theory is, for some people, it just kills them, like you said. For others, they might think it helps them, but I think it doesn't. And let me explain. For your for your boyfriend,
Partner, yeah.
He might
What's up?
he might think that was the thing that helped him produce it the right way afterwards. But I argue the reason why he's able to produce it correctly now, most of the time in real time, is because he's listened to it many times.
True. Yeah, makes sense.
Because if you look at it, most of the times, I mean, in his case, he didn't know, right? But most of the times you make a grammar mistake, you already knew the correct form yourself.
Yeah.
But it didn't prevent you from actually making that mistake.
If you've learned it. Yeah, if you've learned it. So
exactly. Yeah, but even if you haven't, the way to actually acquire that is to listen to it, right?
Yeah.
But what I mean is especially after traditional classes, of course, but you consciously know the rule, but then when you actually want to use it,
you don't have time.
The wrong way because you don't have time to think about it. And people want to correct you, but what I'm saying is most of the times you already know what the right way to say it is. So,
and if you had time, you would say it
exactly
correctly.
When you yourself, you realize, like a second later, you realize you made that mistake, but that didn't prevent you from making it. And then the worst part is what you just mentioned. That
some people will get
discouraged. You become afraid of speaking, even if subconsciously, because for some people like you, it happens to me as well. It's obvious. I can feel that I don't want to communicate as much as I wanted to before. But for other people, they might think it doesn't affect them, but on some weird subconscious level, it does. I'm convinced it does. But I didn't take it a step further and say that it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah. So the way I've always corrected my students from a long time ago, and even now I'll do it sometimes, but less and less. But the only way that I find acceptable is to gently repeat it correctly after they've said it, but not making it obvious. Like if he says a big coffee, a long espresso, you want a long espresso? The way that your parent would talk to you when you're asking for something. So just clarification. And what I've noticed is if they're ready, like if it's something that they don't quite know, but they're ready to know it, ready to learn it, they will pick up on it. And if they're not, it will fly right over their head and I will not insist. But if they get it, and like, oh yeah, I remember learning that, I'll write it in the Google Doc if it's like a grammar thing. And then they can go back and look at it and, oh yeah, I remember learning that. Because for a lot of people, whether or not they're right, they feel that it helps them learn or acquire the language. So I'm there to support them in whatever they feel that works for them. But still, I will always encourage everyone to get a lot of content.
Yeah, because what I try to do is the same thing. Like I try to repeat it correctly myself.
Yeah,
but in a different
subtly.
Yeah, but if I can, like 2 minutes later, so they don't consciously think about it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
They do the right way, but not because if you tell them 5 seconds later,
they'll know.
Then they notice.
Okay. Well,
you're not actually correcting directly, so you're helping them because they're listening to the right way in context. Right?
Yeah.
Because you use it within the context of the conversation, not just wrong, you know?
Yeah.
But as much as I can, I try to use it so they acquire it, but without them realizing that I'm correcting them.
Yeah. Or it's more like modeling, because sometimes like I can tell they're not quite sure how to pronounce something. And then sometimes I'll just say it for them, like, yeah, okay, guys, they're struggling. What's the pronunciation? And then if I can, I'll just reuse it a couple times in the. Yeah,
because then many times, like you said, if there's something they're ready to acquire or they're on the verge of acquiring it, you're probably gonna use it naturally. as you speak,
Yeah.
because naturally you're going to use the most common expressions or words and so on.
Yeah.
And if they're not ready for it, you can tell them 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're not there yet, they might need 100 more times to listen to that word, right? So they'll just get there. Yeah.
Patience.
Exactly. Yeah, but I find it really important to tell them and myself when I'm learning a language that you can say what you can say at a specific moment. It sounds pretty obvious, but I think it's not. What I mean by that is, or you can understand what you can understand.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is there's no shortcut, there's no hack that's gonna take you from understanding this much to that much in an hour or with a flashcard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you can communicate at this level. It is what it is. No, it doesn't mean it's not working. It doesn't mean you're not good at languages. It doesn't mean, you know what I mean?
That's where you're at.
I understand the frustration because our ultimate goal is to be able to communicate in the language. I get that. I feel that myself, of course. But if I can communicate at this level, it means I can communicate at this level. It doesn't mean I should be here. I'm here. So even if it's real that I should be here, which I don't think it is, there's no point in dwelling, right? That helps me a lot. Like, okay, I'd love to communicate more fluently, but I'm not there yet. I'll get there later,
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right. Are you going back to Agen one of these summers? The
Yeah.
Agen workshop?
Yeah, I mean,
you're in Europe.
I am. Yeah.
I plan on going every single summer.
Right. It's funny because perspective plays a role here as well. And let me explain what I mean, because so you're Canadian, right? So now that you're in Europe, it's to you it seems like it's just down the road, right? But the 2 years I went to Agen, I wasn't actually in Spain, in my hometown, which is in the center north of Spain.
Okay.
And Agen is in the south of France.
Yeah, it's
right?
not far.
So it was like a 5-6 hour drive, which is super close. But now I'm in Poland.
You can fly.
I know. But it's completely psychological.
Yeah, okay.
But I can fly to Bordeaux, I guess. It's just,
yeah, I fly into Toulouse, but Bordeaux is more expensive. So far I've been flying into Toulouse. I love Toulouse, but I want to visit Bordeaux. But anyway, there's a group of Spanish teachers who started a small conference in Spain this year.
They've already done it?
Yeah, this year there's a small group that started a conference in Germany, and there's one in near Amsterdam.
Yeah, I knew that one. And
I think that's not new.
I knew about the German and the Dutch one, but the one
there's, I think in Huerta, I don't remember what it's called, but I'll find it for you.
And do you know who it is? Or who's organizing it?
I'm not very good with names and faces. Okay. I know the faces, but I don't remember the names.
Okay.
Actually.
No worries.
I don't want to say names and it's not them, but I'll find it for you.
You can send me an email later. No worries.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think it's in Huerta, so that's kind of north center.
Huerta?
I think. Is that a city in Spain? It's not acquired.
It's not a famous city.
Yeah.
I think there's a city called Huerta. Probably, yeah.
I'm not sure that's where it's happening. So
no worries. I'll look it up or I'll ask you in an email. Yeah.
But yeah, anyone who is in Europe has access to new conferences also in other countries. And the big conferences are in the US. There's also online training.
Yeah.
It's an amazing network of teachers who use CI approaches because it works. And then they want to help other teachers use them. It's amazing. They're lovely teachers.
You went there this year for the first time or?
The second time. Last year was my first time.
Okay. Last year was online, wasn't it?
No, it was in person with masks and small groups.
That was 2020. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So 2020 was online. Yeah.
It was online. Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't go in 2020 because I wanted to go in person for the whole experience. Like they said, the long lunch hour where you have time to meet people and
Absolutely.
have conversations that go beyond what you did in the labs or presentations. Yeah.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, especially the first year, it really helped me like put the pieces together, because 2016, when I went there for the first time, I hadn't started teaching yet. I read a lot of books about crashing, watched a lot of videos, but it really helped me put the pieces together, understand why we're doing what we're doing, what we need to do in order to help our students, and so on.
Which language lab? Oh, you did the Chinese.
That first year, I did French, because I didn't speak French at the time.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing to be a student in a language you don't know, and in less than a week, the language is in your brain. It's absolutely. Who was the French teacher when you did it?
Sabrina.
Sabrina. Okay, that's how you know her.
Yep.
I've never met her in person, but yeah, she looks amazing. I've seen demos and
Yep.
yeah, it's just I suppose everyone who's listening to your podcast knows about CI and all these approaches, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna stop talking about it until we make it as mainstream as possible.
Yeah. I'm just very frustrated with the fact that it's hard to find CI-based classes anywhere. If you're not in the school system, especially in the US, I think that's where most are. Well, a lot in different countries in Europe, some in Canada, but not that much, I think. If you're not in the school system and you're lucky enough to have a CI teacher, how are you going to get CI classes?
Well, recently in the last few years, I've learned to. This is not about languages; this is in general, but I use it with languages. I've learned to sort of. I'm gonna get a stoic here, like control what you can control, or you know what I mean. So, or do what you can, to change that. So back to the language change thing that I was talking about. So you'd love to learn Swahili, and you don't know of anyone teaching Swahili, right? So let me just try to find someone from, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Somalia, who speaks the language and for some reason is interested in learning Spanish, and educate them on how it goes.
Yeah.
Because, I can wish for someone to just pop up and start teaching. I'm using Swahili. I'm not interested in that right now, but what I mean by that is, what can I do to actually get it done? And this is like, stoicism, and it doesn't have to do with.
Well, it has to do with everything.
Yeah, of course.
It applies to anything. Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So make it happen. If you want it, try to make it happen. And if you can't, you can't.
Yeah, because we have the internet now. You can actually reach out to pretty much anybody on earth, which is amazing if you think about it.
Yeah.
So,
and Swahili is a big language. A few years ago, I was interested in helping to volunteer with refugees in Drummondville, the small town where my mom lives in Quebec. And I was paired with a young family from Congo, but they basically grew up in a refugee camp. And Swahili was the common language. And he had a thumb drive with Game of Thrones dubbed in Swahili.
Nice.
Like, wow. He lived his whole life in a refugee camp, but he also saw Game of Thrones dubbed in his language. The world is so small.
How about that? Yep.
Exactly. But yeah, Swahili is spoken in a lot of languages. Yeah, there's so many languages to learn, but yeah.
Yeah, it was just the first example that came to mind.
Time, energy. Yeah. Anyways, I should go because is it later for you or for me? What time is it?
For you, it's for you.
It's
I'm an hour behind you. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Oh yeah, we're kind of more east.
So it was a pleasure, Helene.
Yeah. Immense pleasure talking with you.
And well, we mentioned it, and I leave the links down below. But Wandering French is your project, your YouTube channel, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And yeah, if you're present on Instagram or any other platforms, you can send me
Yeah.
all the links,
Okay.
and I'll list them down below.
Yeah. Mostly Patreon. People who want one video every day.
Nice.
They pay $5 a month, €5 a month, and they get one video in their inbox every weekday.
Perfect.
With subtitles. It's a lot of work. That's why I don't have time to learn Bulgarian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just send me an email with every link you want me to list.
Share. Okay. Thanks. All right.
Perfect.
Okay,
so,
well.
Yeah, thank you so much again, and I'll see you around.
My pleasure. Yeah, see you around.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks so much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for you. And if you want to know more about language learning, language acquisition, like, what's the best way to learn a language, ideas for language learning, the best resources at different levels, here you can find the whole playlist with all the interviews I've done so far with different researchers, teachers, polyglots, and so on. And finally, right here, you smash this guy right in the face to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.